This is Interview with an Artist, Part 1. Hi there. Would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Jerry Chavnik, and I'm grandpa, and this is exciting for me. This is the first time for me anybody ever, decided to listen to me for more than 5 minutes. And now I'm a little nervous because I got a camera in front of me. But I'll try to answer any questions you might have.
Perfect. Thank you. I'm going to call you Grandpa, if that's okay.
That's perfectly all right because I am your grandpa.
Yeah. My name is Alicia Chavnik, and I'm going to be interviewing my wonderful grandpa today. And as you can see, there's a bunch of paintings surrounding us, and they were all made by Jerry himself. So we wanted to ask you a few questions about
Sure.
the process and what was going through your head during these paintings and all that fun stuff. The first
Sure.
painting I wanted to ask you about is Self-Portrait. That is the shirt that I'm wearing right here. And I wanted to know, how did you come up with this idea in the first place?
Well, as I said before, I told you that I'm a reader. I've been reading all my life. And it was a phrase in a passage in a book that I read, that I was reading. And I don't remember whether it was a science fiction book or it was a novel of some kind, because that's all I read was novels mostly. In the book, one of the characters is describing a situation that he is observing, and he was talking about something like something similar to what you would expect if you opened up a valuable timepiece and you looked inside, and the words that the character said was that what he saw was an intricate nest of interlocking gears. Now that phrase, an intricate nest of interlocking gears,
Right.
is something that I try to imagine in my mind. And the connection somehow popped in my head that basically that if someone was to look inside my mind, my brain, that was what they would see, figuratively speaking, an intricate nest of interlocking gears. The whole idea was that I couldn't possibly paint interlocking gears and make it look interesting. I've seen inside of watches and timepieces, and I know what they look like. They're not really interesting to look at, and not easily painted, because they'd probably all be made of metal, and they would have it would be monochrome mostly, just one color.
Mm-hmm.
And the gears themselves would be very intricate in order to make it work. So I thought of another way of doing this, and it has to do with something called nanotechnology.
Okay.
In nanotechnology, they're talking about microscopic size mechanical structures that, using metric measurements, they were so small that if we go down to centimeters and millimeters, the next thing would be a nanometer.
Right.
A nanometer is 1/1000th of a meter. And that's how small it is.
Right.
And by doing more research, I found that there has been an attempt to show what a computer representation of a nest of interlocking gears would look like.
Right.
That would be on a nanometer size.
Right.
And when it comes to gears, the most common gear, and you'd find it in many mechanical structures, are what they call a planetary gear. A planetary gear is where you have a central rod, and the gears are revolving around the central rod. That would be a basic planetary gear, just like the planets are revolving around the sun.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
So that's your basic mechanical gear called the planetary gear.
Mm.
And what I did was found a photograph of a computer representation of a nano-sized planetary gear. And I used that to represent my brains inside my head.
Right. Wow.
And I was able to use that photo because it was made up of all those different colors.
Mm-hmm.
They would look like little marbles.
Right.
Or little beads, different colors.
They do.
And they're all in line, as like they were revolving around something,
Wow.
you see.
And they're constantly in motion.
Constantly in motion.
Even in sleep, probably even
And
more
this
so.
this is something that, a way of my representing the workings of my mind, my brain. Now, of course, I did this with the intention of making fun of myself. I wouldn't want to be someone else to make fun of. So I'm really making fun of myself with this. That's why I chose a self-portrait, that it would be only me that I'm making fun of.
Yeah, but it looks quite like you. If anything, I think I would say it's identical.
Well, what I did was I went on the deck in the back of the house, and I set up the camera on a tripod with a cable release that I could hold in my hand and take pictures of myself. I was about 8 feet away from the camera.
Okay.
And I took the pose the way I was holding myself like this.
And did you want to do that pose from the start?
I wanted that pose, yes.
Okay. He knew what pose he wanted. That was the pose.
And the idea was that rather than paint, I was wearing a white t-shirt, but rather than paint the t-shirt, I only painted my arms because I thought it wasn't necessary. Sometimes the less is better.
Agreed.
You see, you could still, if you look, you could still see the shape of my body by the position of my hands. You could still see the t-shirt that I'm wearing, even though it's not there. And then I decided that I wanted it to. This is all about me, and the idea is that some people take themselves too seriously.
I agree. Absolutely.
And here I'm depicting myself where my head is in the clouds. And it usually is. And I'm deep in thought, very serious. I'm clearly in a lot of trouble. So I exposed my brains by cutting the top of my skull off.
Right.
And I positioned the crow, who loves to steal shiny colored things,
Yes.
sitting on my skull on the side with one of the beads in his mouth.
Wow. Now, does that in itself have a meaning, or is just a pesky bird?
Well, the idea is that I'm clearly in a lot of trouble because we don't know how many trips that bird took and how many beads I have missing already.
Yeah.
And I don't know either. But still, I'm very deep in thought and very serious.
To the point where you don't even notice.
I don't even notice. So here I'm in trouble, yet I don't know it. And
Wow, I like
the whole moral of the message is that some people take themselves too seriously, and we shouldn't do that.
That's so profound.
And that was the idea with Self-Portrait 1.
I see. Well, thank you for.
Self-portrait too is another story.
Now that picture, that painting right there evokes a lot of emotions for me. Because just looking at it, all you see is, if you look at it side by side, you know what it is. But when I had this painting in my house for a little while, just that, and just seeing it, I would have my friends and guests come over and they'd be like, wow, this is what's going on? You know what I mean?
Well, it was your brother's favorite painting.
That is really
Chris
cool.
loved this painting.
He did. He did.
So that's why I gave it to him to hang in his house.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So-
it evokes a lot of emotions, and I would love to know, how did you, I don't know the correct term, if it's deep fry, but how did you find these colors, and did you do something with the original photo in order to find this color pattern?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And how did you do that?
Well, I used Photoshop to do it.
Okay, we love Photoshop.
I played around with Photoshop. I played around with the filters. And there are ways in which you could revert positive to a negative. So the idea of positive and negative is central to my thinking as far as human nature is concerned.
Just positive, just negative?
We are full of positive and negatives. And they're all there on an unconscious level. And it's all based on our past experiences from the time we were born.
Do you
So in
think-
order to show all these complexities that are in conflict with each other, I decided to try to depict the same portrait using the same photo by reverting parts of me and parts of my background to both negative and positive at the same time.
Wow. Because that's the essence of people.
Yeah, right.
So you could take this as a bird plucking at your head as a positive or a negative thing, because it could truly be however your
it's a
subconscious.
mixture of both. We are a product of both negative and positive.
That makes sense.
We try to go through life mitigating those conflicts
Right.
somehow.
Yeah.
So here's a situation where the white clouds become a sort of primordial soup that my head is spinning, is swimming in. I'm swimming in a primordial soup, so to speak. And there are parts of the background that are in positive and negative colors
Yeah.
that you expect if you reverted from positive to a negative. And I did the same with my body, with me. There are parts of me that are positive and parts of me that are negative.
Right.
So I'm a mixture of all. And even the bird is rendered the same way, both positive and negative.
Yep, I see that. Yep.
And once I was able to achieve that on Photoshop, I printed it out and I painted it that way.
Wow. There's something I noticed though. I don't know if this was intentional, but I'm noticing that the beads are the same color on both paintings.
Yes, I left that on intentionally.
Why is that?
Well, because I loved the way it looked,
Yeah, it's really
and it has all the colors,
Yeah.
and it took a lot of time painting them and getting them right,
It's a great color combination.
and I decided to use the same, that's all positive colors from the original colors that I used.
Interesting.
So I used the same thing. I didn't touch that. I left that the way it was.
I think there's a metaphor in there somewhere. I think that's brilliant. Even if it was just for the color scheme, I just think the whole painting being twisted, you know, and positive and negative colors, you know, completely different, except what's happening inside is the exact same.
Well,
I really
actually,
think that's
there was
cool.
it's another reason why I used the same color beads
Yeah. Why?
is because I wanted the bird to be attracted to those colors, and that's why the bird is taking them.
That makes sense. Bird seeds are colorful, right? Aren't some of them pretty colorful?
And the one he's got in his mouth is red.
In both pictures, yeah, he picks out the red one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's. I think that's really cool.
So that's how I put that together, and that's the whole story of that painting.
Well, look at this. Now we have it on a sweatshirt, and we have it on the back
yes.
too. So
Yeah.
some of my friends have called this an album cover. Don't take it. It's copyrighted, okay? You cannot steal. No, thank you, Grandpa. That was so fascinating.
Well, you're perfectly welcome. I'm thrilled that I have people that are interested, you know, in what I have to say.
Well, now I wanted to ask you about another painting of yours,
Sure.
if that's okay. This one, right behind me,
Finishing touches.
Finishing Touches. For the audience, this beautiful woman right here is my grandmother. And this is Grandpa adjusting her hat inside the painting. And wow, how interesting is that? Have you ever seen anything like that before? And those are my grandparents. Yep. Don't be
So-
jealous. All right, Grandpa, I wanted to know, what was the inspiration behind Finishing Touches with you and my grandma? Did you pose her up originally, and did you pose yourself? Like, how do we execute this?
What I did was, you know, we had a high ranch, and we were downstairs in the basement, you know, in the den downstairs.
Sure.
I was doing other paintings and all, and doing my own photographs for all my paintings.
Right.
So I did buy some equipment. I bought a floodlight that I attached to the ceiling through an arm that could swivel and go in any direction
Oh, interesting.
within 10 feet.
Wow.
I attached it to one of the beams in the ceiling
Okay. Right.
to the
I
left,
see.
to the left of me.
Yep. That makes sense.
The room was darkened completely. I took this picture in the evening. The blinds were closed. The whole room was dark except for the floodlight.
Right.
That's why everything is dark in there. I set the camera up. Well, what I did was I set Grandma on a chair. I put books on the chair so it would keep her propped up high. And I hung the frame that this painting is in front of her.
Oh. Okay, so you
So she's
positioned
sitting
it much exactly how it is in the painting.
in the painting. She's sitting in front of the painting.
In front of the frame.
Behind the frame, rather.
Behind
the
the
frame is right in front of her.
But it's the exact same
Yeah,
frame.
same frame is hanging in front of her.
And that's just brilliant. Are you kidding me? Like, who does that? That's so cool.
So
That's
looks
so
like
unique.
I'm painting her.
Exactly, yeah.
You see, you don't see the chair she's sitting on because the easel is there.
Yep.
You see, so the frame is
Let me
sitting.
move out of the frame for a sec.
I sat her on a chair and I colored the chair red, you know, and I painted a curtain behind her, the green curtain.
Yeah.
So that's the backdrop behind her.
Yeah.
You see. Now, my table where I mix my paints is sitting in. I'm still using the same table. I have the same table, and the shelf where I keep my brushes and my equipment is. I still use the the same structure, same thing.
He
It's
does.
still there. All my paint, and I left everything exactly the way it was when I painted it. Okay? I set the camera up behind me to my left, about 12 to 15 feet away.
Yeah.
I don't remember exactly whether I had a cable release. I might have used the cable release to take the pictures. Or maybe I don't know if Stephen or Glenn would remember if they actually took the picture when I asked them to snap the pictures. But I think I used the cable release, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
You don't see the cable in there, I wouldn't have painted that.
Wow.
So I posed in front of there, and the idea behind this whole thing was that while I was painting her, she became real to me, and I became real to her. Because you see, she's looking at me, and I'm reaching in and adjusting her hat as though she became real. From the painting, she became real. We became real to each other.
Like she gained consciousness and you were able to connect
Yeah.
through.
She became so real, I could reach into the painting and adjust her hat. And I became so real because she's actually looking at me.
She's looking right at you.
You see.
Right.
And I put a smile on her face, a look as though she's expressing her love for me. And I'm doing the same for her. And that position where I hold my hand on the side with the brushes,
Yeah.
showing that the brushes are still wet, that I'm in the process of painting,
Right.
you see, that I'm actually in the process of painting.
And you were like, I'm just gonna tilt that just a little
Yeah,
bit.
right. Yeah.
Wow.
And then I put the pearls. I gave her. She was wearing a nice dress, and she actually had that hat.
Yeah.
And I put that on her, and basically used the same frame in the painting that is around the big painting. But I didn't sign the big painting. I signed the painting that she's in.
Right there.
Yeah.
That is just perfect. He always finds a way to put his name.
I'll hide it somewhere.
You always find a way to hide your name inside a painting. I think that's so cute. And then you decide to put it within the second painting.
Right.
I think that's perfect. And when Grandma saw it, did she love it?
Oh yeah, she loved it. Yes, she did.
Yeah, I bet.
She really loved it. And I painted her the way I saw her.
She's beautiful. So accurate.
When I paint a portrait of someone, I don't do portraits. I do character studies. And I may do a painting of someone, but what I put in that painting is something I feel.
Yeah.
Or something I want to see.
Right.
I don't know how I do it, to be honest with you.
I think a lot of artists can say that. It just kind of, do you surprise yourself sometimes?
Oh, I'm always surprised. I look at somebody's old paintings, I say, I can't believe I did that, Like, for instance, I'll paint someone, and in the painting, that someone is looking at the viewer. Like the painting with the violin that's called cadenza. Wherever you are in this room, he's staring at you.
Yep, what an illusion that is. Because my whole life, these paintings have been here before I was born. And that one would always stare at me at night when I slept over at your house.
A lot of people, they do, a lot of people say that's their favorite one because it's so compelling,
You know what it feels like almost? It is compelling. It almost feels like what's going on in this painting. You know what I mean? But except the people experience it. I think that's
Well, I experience it myself. You know, every morning when I come in, I look at him and he looks at me and I say, I'm still here.
oh, come on.
Every morning.
Well, he's like your roommate.
That little dog there, Grandma made that dog.
Aw.
She went to a pottery class. I painted it like our dog Brute.
Yes, Baru.
But every time I walk past, I pet him in the morning. Feel sorry, the poor thing. Looks like he's sitting there all the time, so I pet him.
That is magic. Are you kidding? And I know Grandma sees that. I know
Yes.
she sees and feels you petting that inanimate dog. And that is so special. That's
I
so
can't walk by without petting him, you know. Well, you know, rubbing his head.
He's so cute. Someone get him a puppy. I love it, Grandpa. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
I do that. So you know, so every painting has a feeling, you know, about it.
Oh, yes.
I want to say something about it. I don't have a theme. Everything I do is completely different than anything else I've ever done.
Okay, Grandpa. So I have one more painting that I was really curious to know about. And it's your painting called Precious Memories. So from what I can recall from the painting, it's my grandmother, my cousin Ben, and they're holding hands, and then my sibling Chris just running, zooming straight ahead. And that sounds about right. And I was curious to know why you wanted to paint that picture and what feelings the picture gave you, and your process for that as well.
Well, it was a picture that was taken by Ben's father, Stephen.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay, my Uncle Steve.
He took the photo.
Got it, okay.
We were invited to, I think it was the first Holy Communion. It was, I think it was either Frank's or Gregory's daughter. And it was over on the North Shore.
Mm-hmm.
And I was Frank's daughter. And Frank was a member of a yacht club.
Oh, nice.
And
Nice.
And in the afternoon, there was time that Grandma took Ben and Chris for a walk down by the docks to look at the boats,
Okay.
and that was the occasion. And Stephen was there, and he took this photo from behind. You don't see their faces,
Right.
but you know who they are.
Mm-hmm.
You can still tell who they are.
Yeah, you definitely can.
And when I looked at the photo, I just loved it. And there was so much feeling there. And who was there? My wife, my grandson, his cousin. And it was such a beautiful, you know, charming picture. And what attracted me was that a lot of people take pictures of people where you could see their faces, or they're smiling, or they're posing, but there was something magical about this because they weren't posing, they were doing something that they were enjoying. It's just an afternoon walk,
You can tell they're having a great time.
you know.
Yeah.
And I just fell in love with the photo, and I knew I had to paint it.
It's cute, like how my cousin Ben is just holding Grandma's hand.
Right.
And, you know, I look at it and I just know that everyone is safe. You know what I mean? Like, even though
Yes.
Chris
It
is
was-
running ahead and is super far away, no one's in a rush. No one's telling him to stop. It's
It-
just love and safety.
And as far as I'm concerned, this was a precious time that I had to capture and make make it last forever.
And it truly has. And we'll see you guys in part 2.